Scott, do you have a question?
No, I'm just curious because you talk about the innovator's dilemma, and one of the things that Sonus aside with the other three players face when you had to build new products is you had a choice of focusing on innovation or spending your scarce resources building plumbing. If you think about an SDP, yes, they could facilitate innovation, but a lot of what they do is really plumbing. It's interfaces and things. And I'm just curious how you guys came to the decision basically to recreate the plumbing that a BEA or Sonus Oracle does rather than focus all of your attention on innovation on top of that. Like, what was missing from these core plumbing products that you felt like you needed to redo the pipes?
Nice. You know, and I think Pankaj and Crick have to take that one because.
I'd like to hear from these guys.
No, yeah.
Oh yeah, I bet you would.
Well, we didn't rebuild any of the plumbing. We used the existing plumbing that was there. We built the applications that would facilitate, in fact, really monetization and better customer service on top of the plumbing that was already existing.
What was the plumbing that was already existing?
Well, in some cases, it is old telco switches, the Nortel top switch, the Ericsson 5E switch. I mean, old infrastructure, and in many cases, in my opinion, very old. In some of the European customers that we work with, and Europe is a little different to North America because they've deregulated their directory assistance industry, and so there's many more players in Europe than there are in Canada or the US, and they'll have soft switches and they'll have newer technology, but we just had to live with whatever infrastructure and plumbing that they already had.
I guess to be more specific, you could take the old switches and take a service delivery platform. The idea is that they already have built in things like SIP and SMS and all these different interfaces. So ultimately, all of you guys have to build, or you said that you have to build interfaces to other systems in order to make it work more broadly. You all have to face this question of how much plumbing do you recreate of the interfaces and stacks versus focusing purely on the application layer. It sounds like you guys made an interesting choice where you essentially all had to build those stacks and other things, certainly that Ribbit did. And I'm just curious, how do you make that decision, and what's the thinking between using plumbing for stuff that's off the shelf versus really recreating it? It sounds like, I guess I ask you, you all found that there's something lacking in the market with the current vendors, and you decided to build some things yourselves, stacks and interfaces. So I guess the question is why?
From our perspective, we think I think what was missing was the solutions, not the plumbing. So we focused on creating new solutions and not the underlying technology.
I guess as a technologist, I have just one comment is, having tried to build an SDP ourselves, so we are building the plumbing like you said. I think there's an interesting choice as an architect at least that you face is at what layer do you bring in convergence? And I think the difference I see between some other platforms and ours is that we chose consciously to leverage our DNA, our competitive advantage, our core competence to leave that alone and then build convergence at a level that's slightly higher in terms of abstraction, and then build APIs on top of that abstraction layer. Whereas many of other platform vendors chose to throw everything out of the window and restart with a fully converged kind of a mindset, meaning they have SMS and voice-like APIs that are embedded in their web APIs or their web platforms or their J2EE platforms. And I think you can get equal amount of flexibility and innovation support with both strategies, which we have proven. But it's just at that point, it's just a matter of performance and how much effort, like you said, you want to actually put in reinventing things. And we actually chose the practical route. Despite the fact that we are a plumbing company, we actually went one more level further and said, you know what, we're not going to reinvent everything. We already have a great SIP stack. It's been in the business for 10 years. We have a great diameter stack. We can support LDAP. We can bolt on XML and a J2EE SDK and implement a very high performance CCXML parser, and voila, we have an SDP. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a question of choices at the technology level, I think, that also plays into it a little bit. It's not all business model and ROI.
So we only have 3 or 4 minutes left before we're going to have to close out. Is there any other? That's a great question, Scott. You may. Unless we've got someone who wants a very pressing question in the audience.
Anyone with something really pressing?
Okay, Shai, take it away.
Okay, from my perspective, we didn't duplicate anything that exists in the type of SDPs that Pankaj is talking about. Everything that Fonolo built is really something new. Our core asset is the ability to go out and map the IVRs and map phone space and build that database that allows you to skip around and deep dial right to the point that you need and avoid waiting on hold, etc. So that's all new, right? So there's no duplication in that sense. Now, when we partner with carriers, all that great stuff in the OSS group of subscriber databases and billing and all the other things that you need to deliver a service, that's all going to be brought to bear from their perspective. Now, the interface between a service like ours and a carrier really needs to be nothing more than a SIP call and some integration at the web level. So, in our case, IMS and all its great stuff and the SDPs that people are using is all going to be to our benefit. I guess the bottom line is that there is lots of room for innovation. There's lots of new features that can still be built that is outside of the dotted line that was drawn by IMS and the other SDP platforms.
Great. All right, so in the closing minutes here, I'd like to play just a little game. I'll give you each 30 seconds, and this has nothing to do with SDPs. Okay, this is like, what number am I thinking about? No. Will you please go down the line? I don't care what order you take, and just tell the audience what's the best thing you saw at the show. The one thing you said, you know what, this was really great. So please, I'll start. That way you can think. I heard of a platform vendor, an API vendor that was charging much more per minute than typical termination. I saw rates go up with APIs. That was like really good. We all like think about lowering ARPUs. I heard someone who was actually bringing the rate up for the first time. For the first time in a very long time, someone's rate went up.
Wants to go first?
Okay. Go ahead. We'll start this end. I saw a new business opportunity for Call Genie in again, reproducing the kind of things that we do in the telco world with directory assistance and advertising, is doing the same thing in the VoIP world. Right? Because as VoIP starts to become a more legitimate telephony infrastructure in and of itself, we now have a new opportunity to provide our services. So I'm pretty excited about
good, great.
The steps
Fantastic,
VoIP's
good,
doing.
good, all right.
I really enjoyed the opening keynote that Garry Kim gave. He continued to reinforce the concept that carriers are very eager to find new features, to make their services more sticky, to recover some of the revenue they're losing from dropping voice prices, all of which is very encouraging to me, given the business model we've chosen. So that was definitely, I really enjoyed that part.
Cool, great. Crick?
Yeah, I continue to be encouraged by the trends that we're seeing in making voice something that can be managed by end users through application development. And I was particularly inspired by the thought of all these peering relationships that Shriari is working on with his new voice peering fabric. And I look forward to more of that happening across the globe.
Cool, yeah.
The coolest thing I found was actually kind of not related to many of the telco-oriented tracks that we had. We had one off the beaten path, completely new track in this session, which was never in the voice peering forum, and it was titled Federating Social Networks. And the folks that were in these same seats that we are sitting in right now were Hi-Fi, Friendster, Google, and Plaxo.
Yeah, right.
And the best thing that I learned there, and the coolest thing which I'm going to take back and try to implement this in our SDP, in our platform, is that I can create a social network container and implement open social APIs to connect friends in new ways. So I can expose telco services to 7, 8, 9, 10 social networks in one shot.
Very cool. Yeah, I almost said the best thing was the open bar last night, but I choked it back.
I thought it was a little bunny what do you call those things? The bunny dim sums. Those were
Oh, the bunnies are good too. Okay. So anyways, thank you very much for putting up with us. We appreciate it. Can we have a hand for our speakers, please? Okay.